trigger recording. Okay, so good morning, everyone. It's Randy Labonte here, and I just want to introduce our host, David Comrie, as well, while I set up for a little land acknowledgement. Go ahead, David, say a few words.
Okay, we have an opportunity to use the School District 73, their opening comment by Brenda Solista. We found it was offered to us by their Pro-D chair, so I think we can start now.
Yeah, we will. Sorry, I forgot to actually click on my share screen to optimize video. The thing that I told everyone to do in all of our training. My apologies. There's our mics, and we'll watch the video.
Wait, Hohaitap, Brenda Celesta in Quest. Hello everyone, my name is Brenda Celesta. I'd like to acknowledge that all of our learning is taking place today in the beautiful Secwepemc Nation territory. I'm standing just below the community of Simk, which is my home community. I'd like to acknowledge all of the hard work of the Kamloops Thompson Teachers Association and all of the presenters so that you can take part in your learning online. Due to the COVID-19, it's changed our situation, but I still think today should be a beautiful day for learning about Indigenous culture and learning about Indigenous people and Indigenous information that you can bring into your classrooms. Have a great day. Kuksjem.
Okay, I've got my mic on. Can you hear me, Randy?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, thank you. If you want to have a look at the actual video, it's right on the front page of the program. So welcome to the 17th annual 2020 CANeLearn Symposium. It was put on by CANeLearn, the Educators for Distributed Learning, BC Partners in Online Learning, and this is our Digital Learning Symposium. Usually we'd be in front of a crowd of about 400 people and they'd all be looking, and now I'm just looking at these panels in front of me. So I'd just like to acknowledge a few of the folks that are on the panel. Thomas Dish is our vice president for our, oh, they are WAVE. It's even in Randy's notes, it says WAVE. So what I would like to also introduce are the CANeLearn board members. Michael Camille, I'm sorry.
Canuel.
Todd Potley. Amy
Pottle.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm 2 for 2 right now, right? How about Amy Sanville? Where's Amy? Is she up there? And Frank McCullum, Bruce Wenzel, and Michael Barber. I don't see Michael though.
Oh, hang on, I gotta get him in. That's fine. Carry on. Okay,
so as Randy has pointed out, we had an opportunity to work with School District 73. They had a face-to-face professional development day today, and a number of the teachers are participating in their district's professional development day. We have about 70 KTTA members who have joined us, and we have 5 workshops that were going to be presented at the face-to-face that have come and joined us. So we spent the last week having an amazing time with those folks, getting them ready for the presentation. I'd also like to thank the my EDL committee of not only Thomas, but of Jenny Morrison and Danica Cunningham. They were also very helpful in getting this to go together. Also, a big thank you to Randy. I mean, he looks like an air traffic controller as he's popping through the dials and getting all this stuff together in the committee. And I think he will mention further about that. So welcome and enjoy today for sure. And hopefully Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Thanks.
Thanks, David. And my apologies. A couple of folks let me know that my epic failure was I didn't actually optimize. For some reason, the YouTube video wasn't streaming through visually for you. I do apologize, and certainly we'll post a link for the video so you can go back and look. It was quite visually wonderful. So I'll dig that out and put in the text chat when I get a second, so you can go back and look. So yeah, no, it's my pleasure to be here. It's been a challenging, well, I would say probably 6 weeks through transitioning from the hotel base, but also fortunate enough with the work that was done to for Canny Learn to not see a penalty in the hotel. There's for those of you that aren't familiar with that, there's usually contracts that involve a significant amount of money. I feel really bad for the hotel business and industry. They're decimated. We fortunately were able to survive past that, but when you think in terms of cancellation, it's not that simple. There's a complex set of financial industry mechanisms behind that, and someone pays the price somewhere, somehow. We are all in a situation where we are all finding different prices that we're paying for some of the things that we're doing, but I really admire the work that of all the folks that have pulled together to help us transition into the digital learning domain, doing it with confidence, but also doing it with recognition that we're going to make mistakes as we do this until we get it much more smooth. Hopefully that we can continue to do some sort of a digital enhancement to any of our gatherings going forward, but more on that with the panel. So this year, because we've gone virtual, we've got the opportunity for a larger number of people to come in from across Canada and different locations that couldn't come physically to the building in the hotel. So we've got well over 100 to 150 additional registrants that have come in. Moving them into Canvas this morning, that has created a little bit of problem because of the vigilance and diligent IT people who put spam filters on the emails that come in. So a lot of emails got just whoosh. So I tried to work with the Canvas team to work around that, and they've been at it 24/7. So thank you very much for Canvas, who's our platinum sponsor, and hosting us today and tomorrow as well. And delegates you see that will you be interacting with come from a wide variety of backgrounds. They're from First Nations schools, independent schools, public schools, as well as corporate and nonprofit organizations. So we've got a very nice mix of people to share with. There's Learning Commons that we have that are available in terms of a document for you to work with, but also at the same time, what we want to do is have a sort of a debriefing at the end of the session this morning and through the afternoon. So come in and just have an open dialogue with us. Our official sponsors can't do it without sponsors. They help keep us going. Canvas certainly, and I'll turn it over to Aaron in just a second, but also the BCDL Administrators Association, a partner that has supported us. And thank you very much, Karen, who's president again of the BCDLAA as well, and EDL, David and Thomas. So thank you for your continuing support and that of the Teachers Federation to make this go. And obviously Zoom, who has given us this free account and has been a good supporter and taken some hits being a good supporter that they are, but they have dealt with their security issues, people, and that's also why you're experiencing some different setup in Zoom, that you don't all get to talk at once. Our silver sponsors, Steady Forwards, Richard Bootgood, who's been a stalwart supporter all along for many years. We're missing not coming by picking up one of your pens, Richard, but thank you for being here virtually for us. Our new sponsors as well, Proteus. If you get a chance, look at their VR sessions in the afternoons. It's going to be an interesting setup. It's something that I stumbled across and really glad that they're here with us. And of course, Microsoft supporting all the accounts with the documents as well as with playing around with Teams. An excellent product, an excellent setup. Doesn't work for our environment quite the same way in that it's not built for an open web conferencing. It is really a secure environment to work with students. So those of you that are districts with O365, Teams is great, and it gives you really integrated features for that. And of course, partners, Western Canadian Learning Network with Bruce Weitzel, as well as Brent Sawatsky, we all know. EdTech team, Michelle can't be here. She's been busy with everything else. We're going to do this as a tag team, but she's going to come for the Demo Slam on Thursday. So if you haven't signed up, come for that. It's going to be lots of fun as well. And then iCampus 21, Dirk Meyer is hosting our Moodle. So thank you very much, Dirk, and WCLN for doing that. A media promotion by Share Learning, Robert Martellacci, as well as Open School. And I have, oops, sorry, wrong lapel. I have the 100-year Open School pin that I proudly wear on my jacket. So thank you to Open School as well, and D2L, who's coming in the Wednesday, Thursday to showcase Brightspace as well, that many people are working and using across the, as well as Bayfield Design, who's a new partner that's in. So we really appreciate that, and all the exhibitors who are here working with their tools. So thank you for everyone there. So let me turn it over to you, Erin.
Awesome, thanks, Randy. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the symposium. We at Canvas are very excited to be platinum sponsors this year of the conference and to host the first 2 days in our learning management system. So I'm going to share my screen in a second just to give you a little bit of an overview of the homepage. And we know we've had some troubleshooting this morning about getting people in. Don't worry, we've sent you an email. And in that email will be some instructions of how to log in if you haven't been able to do that so far. So I'm just going to share. So we've created an environment in Canvas in order to run today's and tomorrow's sessions. So if you're in Canvas, you'll see the home page here. And the most important thing that I want to point out here is where to get help. Right down in the middle of the screen is a link here for additional assistance. So we have people standing by to provide assistance if anybody needs it. I also wanted to show you where to find today's schedule and how to find the sessions. So if you click on modules, just over on the left-hand side, you'll see all of the sessions for today, listed here by time. Once you click into those sessions, you'll then have a link to join the actual conference presentation. And we congratulate all the presenters. We're really looking forward to working with you, and that's Canvas for you. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'd just like to share a little video to kick things off. So
let's see if you do better than me, Erin.
Yeah, let's see.
Don't forget the 2 little boxes on the bottom.
You bet.
Just the audio. Come on. All good.
Education gives me hope because I believe that knowledge is power, and as said by Nelson Mandela, education is the greatest weapon that you can use to change the world.
I care if my teacher cares because it makes me do better. It makes me to want to do better.
All right, I hope that worked.
It did. All good.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks, Erin. Appreciate that. And thank you for being a sponsor and being a part of our events. And we're looking forward to learning more about Canvas as we go through.
Awesome.
So it's my pleasure to hopefully share the screen properly again. And to introduce our panel. So this is the session on the future of digital learning, an ominous commentary, an ominous statement. So at this point in time, what I'd like to do is just introduce folks around. So Karen, why don't you say hello, and then just in the order that folks are there listed, just go ahead and grab the mic and say hello and good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Karen Flello. I'm the principal of the South Island Distance Education School, but I'm also the president of the BC Distributed Learning Administrators Association, and I'm really honored to be here today. Thank you for having me.
And good morning, my name is Frank McCallum. I'm the associate principal for Vista Virtual School. I'm based out of Calgary, Alberta. I've been doing distance education in some form for the past 2 decades or more, and looking forward to sharing and hearing what's happening across the country.
Good morning, my name is Amy Sandville. I'm the principal of Regina Catholic Schools Learning Online. In my role, I am able to support fully online education as well as blended learning opportunities in our school division.
Hi everyone, my name is Todd Pottle. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario eLearning Consortium. So we're a consortium of about 25 school boards spread throughout Ontario, and we share e-learning course offerings and students across all of our districts. So also I'm an online instructor at Queen's University. So great to be here, Randy, and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Caniel. I'm the CEO of Learn. I'm situated right now in the Laurentians, just a little bit north of Montreal. Our role at Learn is really to serve the educational needs of our community right across the province, and we've been doing this since 2005. Thank you.
Hi there, and finally, I'm Michael Barber. I'm an associate professor of instructional design at Touro University, California, in lovely Vallejo, California.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate that. Just a couple of questions going by in terms of the setup. Yes, this is a different Zoom account than what many people are used to. This is the webinar account. And Zoom has done a lot in terms of ensuring about the security. There were some bad user experiences, as we're all familiar with. So we wanted to at least model some tightened down secure set situations. We're going to use the webinar setup here for the plenaries because it's a little bit more presentation or a couple of people talking to you, so less interactive. But for all of the breakout sessions, all of the workshop sessions, it's in Zoom meetings, which we're all familiar with. You'll have text, chat, video, breakout rooms, all sorts of interactive pieces. We tried to keep it a little bit less here because we've got about 400 people. And by the way, there's now over 80 sessions in the workshop schedule over the 4 days. So really happy to see how it's expanded, and all, of course, at the last minute. If you're not familiar with the Canadian e-learning network, it's really came from events like this where we decided that rather than talking to each other in socials and at events in the US at large conferences, that maybe we should do something locally in Canada. And so 7 years ago, we created the national network and partner with all of the provincial initiatives in digital and online or blended learning that are occurring. So this is just one that I personally have been involved in actually for most of the 17 years that this thing has been going on. Not always run by me, sometimes helping out, sometimes just as participant like others. And Karen, I know, hosted in 1 year, and David is part of the hosting now as well. So CannyLearn is us. It's not a separate organization, and it's just all mostly volunteers and those of us that come together to try to share expertise, research. And Michael Barber is one of those volunteers who's our original honorary founding member as well as host. So I want to talk a little bit about what's here. And well, I want to acknowledge and thank Brad Breitkowitz for doing some of the moderating in the background here. So I really appreciate that, because one of the things that we've learned, if you want to actually be effective, you can't present and moderate at the same time. Two distinct roles. So just wanted to sort of walk through a national survey. And if you've are familiar with the State of the Nation, Michael may come in and talk a little bit more about that research that's there. But you know, all things are not equal across the province. Different programs, different approaches in each of the provinces, because education being a provincial initiative. So what happens then, therefore, is everyone is different. Sue Taylor-Foley, who's also on our board, is with the Ministry of Education in Nova Scotia. So she sent along some things and slides to share, and I thought they actually kind of represented, I think, nicely how it approaches. They have a provincial program that runs across for all. But their focus has been, in terms of digital learning over the past, has been in terms of equity, flexible design, meaningful. So you can see the list. It hits all those large metrics that we're trying to do in K-12 education. But that becomes their sort of their mantra, is part of this. And I know all the programs across the country have been in this same thing about being inclusive, accessible, dealing with equity. Those are all the triggers that are really important, but how it becomes and rationalizes in the world and the context is different for us. So in terms of what they're thinking of what they're doing, they want to get more micro-credentialing, a little bit more towards in Quebec, and Michael, you can talk a little bit about the sort of the competency approaches in terms of the curriculum there. So it's tying curriculum together with practice in digital media spaces is really where the focus becomes. And then with teachers, which now they're all thrust into this, is about expanded use of platforms to engage in learning. So that's part of what our 4 days is to look at as well, to see how and where we can do this. So the problem that's hit us is emergency remote teaching. So we're going along nicely and building up, as you well know, all of you involved in this. And then all of a sudden, bang, we get this pandemic crisis, and now everyone has to transition online. And so we've used the term emergency remote teaching because the preparation for all of us that have been involved in this medium for over those years has been long, with lots of challenges and lots of learning to apply into it. So online learning is a little bit different than just what's happening here. So what we wanted to do was share some of those perspectives. When you think about what's happening right now with kids at home, it's not this. We wish that, you know, parents were creative and could do all this stuff, and, you know, I'm going to learn to do the fiddle, and I can learn how to build this. I'm going to build my rocket ship. Yeah, it's more like this that's happening right now. So the challenges are in terms of getting attention outside of that. And I think that the person that I follow a lot, Tony Bates, and if you're not following Tony, you should, and certainly sign up for his blog. It's really, triage is not the same, and that's what's happening right now that Tony talks about. So I think it's really important to have that. So back to concluding on Nova Scotia before we jump into Michael in Quebec. Nova Scotia is focusing on a common set of tools. And I know that many of you probably, when you were going through this, that was the direction your district was looking at as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael and to Todd for this. So I'm going to just turn off sharing right now, Michael, so that we can get the cameras back up.
Over to me, Randy.
Over to you.
Okay. Well, you asked us to speak very briefly about what was going on in our province and give you a little bit of an overview of what's happened here. Like most of you, back in mid-March, we got notice from the Ministry of Education that our schools would be shut down for a temporary period of time, a week or two. And they even told the teachers, think of this as like a mini vacation. Everyone sit back, relax. It would be fine. When it became obvious that this was going to go well beyond the 2-week span of time, there was a great deal of anxiety and stress within our community, especially among parents and students who were asking, well, what's going to happen to our school year? We're going to lose everything that we've fallen behind. And the reaction from our community was, again, one that is well-intentioned, but there was a tsunami of resources and things coming out at parents. All of our school districts were throwing things out, and as we looked at everything coming into the community, it was there were just so many things and not curated in such a way that parents could really use them. The ministry stepped in and said, well, we're going to try to organize some of these things. However, keeping in mind that everything is voluntary, we can't, there's no coercion, we can't force the teachers or the parents or students to do anything. So they created what was called l'école ouverte, the open school, which again was something unique for us because typically our school boards do not collaborate, they don't share, and our Ministry of Education is typically a little late coming on board. This time around, everyone decided, well, more or less decided, that they were going to have to share resources and create a common space. And we worked in conjunction with some of the local universities, and a lot has really gone on. And for the first time ever, we've seen some interesting things come forward. What really helped parents a great deal was the fact that there are no year-end exams. Everything is voluntary. They did ask the teachers, however, to come on at least once a week to meet with all of their students or to connect with them in one way, fashion or another. Again, this has really not been that successful. You've seen it's gone. If teachers coming on in some places, others they're not even reaching out to them at all, and they're using what they're calling les trousse pédagogiques, which are like teachers' toolkits. And the ministry, along with organizations such as Learn, we've been putting together all kinds of resources for teachers to help them work through all of this. Meanwhile, at our end here at Learn, we have our virtual campus, and we've been doing a lot of things. Our online classes with our students have continued, and we're now up to about 15,000 tutorials on a weekly basis. So we have thousands of kids coming on and doing this, and the parents are loving it, and it's all real time. That seems to be working well, but generally there's a prevailing feeling overall, because there's a lack of a direction still as our ministry tries to catch up to all of this, a sense of feeling of frustration and concern over where we're going. We've seen a lot of parents organizations call on more distance education, but in the meantime, as I said, it's been really haphazard and a little chaotic. Our private schools have been doing it, and it's with moderate success. I'll stop now. I'll keep it short, Randy, for now.
Great, thanks. And folks, I think you have access to the Q&A. So if you want to ask a question, just pose it in the question and answer option for you, all the attendees, and then we'll come back to that as well. And Brad, if you don't mind monitoring that as well, that would be great. Thank you very much. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd. Todd, if you want to, I'll get your slide up for you.
Oh, I can do that, Randy. If it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you can.
Yeah, some things have
okay.
Have changed.
Hang on.
There was another ministry announcement last night, so I had to update.
Wow.
Update my slides. So if you want to stop sharing, then
yeah,
I can.
No. Sorry.
Okay.
No.
Thank you so much.
My cursor went away. It was going all over the place. So.
Well, I just want to echo, I think it was Shirley just mentioned there in the chat pod that she's witness to it all and has children at home. I've got 4, ranging from a special needs daughter at 13, and then twins who are 15, and then a third-year university student who's home from Ottawa. So, yeah, I've witnessed it all as well, certainly. So, Randy, I'm going to put on my timer because you know what I'm like. So when it beeps, I'm going to stop talking since I know that we have 5 minutes. But you know, I thought that the best way to kind of encapsulate the whole, you know, fluidity, which has become a very common part of all of our vernacular right now, is to capture this in a timeline of what exactly is happening in Ontario. And I do actually, a little different than Quebec, I do have to tip my hat to the ministry. I do have to tip my hat to the way that they've been communicating with the school boards, and the way that the school boards have been interpreting those messages and putting it into practice. So, but it all started, you know, with most March 12th, right? We got that 2-week announcement. The kids were, I know in my house, were very happy to hear they were going to have a 2-week extended break. And then March 20th came, and they launched phase 1 of the Learn at Home program. And just want to show you very quickly what that's like. So the Learn at Home program is offering resources. So these aren't teacher-led resources. They're developed by teachers, you know, for students, but it's kind of supports for them that they can learn independently, you know, and you know, hopefully, you know, where it's possible, you know, with the involvement of their parents, support from the parents, and, you know, and others that are around them physically. But we do have TVO Mathify, which is fantastic in helping them with their math skills. And then in Ontario, the ministry writes content. I've been on a couple of course writing projects for the ministry, but they write content, subject specialist writing, vetted very rigorously. for all of our courses, you know, here in Ontario, English and French for the majority of our courses. And so that's available, and then for download and activation in our provincial LMS or VLE, virtual learning environment, which is D2L's Brightspace. So I'm just going to go back here to my timeline. So that was put out, and you know, there was some use of it. But then March 31st came, and they said, well, you know what, school closures are actually going to be extended to May 4th. And at the same time, they said, we're now going to bring the teachers back in, and we will have teacher-led learning. And so that's where we've been ever since, is that there is active teacher involvement. The expectation, the minimum expectation from grade 9 to 12 is 3 hours of work per course per week. And then boards were charged with the task of creating continuity of learning plans. And so just to give you a kind of an idea of what that, you know, how that was manifested in our various boards, most boards would survey their students to their student access to tech and internet. Then they would have to deploy tech to the students who were in need of it. Then there had to be a plan put in place and a process for hard copy distribution, which has been happening. And there's the teacher training portion, because a lot of our regular teachers, even though we have a very strong blended learning program throughout all of our schools and districts throughout the province, there is, you know, this is different. This is going to be learning very remotely. This is more towards e-learning. So there had to be teacher training there, and then the migration of their face-to-face content into the online platforms. Now, we do have a ministry licensed D2L that's used, you know, free for use for all of our educators in publicly funded institutions. But there's also the options to use Google Classroom. We have a lot of our boards are GAF boards and make active use of Google Apps for education. And then, of course, we have things like EDSB as well, and that list goes on. Then they set up a tech support line. And then, of course, very important, the mental health support lines as well. So all of that's been in place. And those are just a few of the things that kind of comprise continuity of learning plan. April 3rd, they announced no more, there's not going to be any midterm report cards, but there will be midterm report marks for our graduating students, because those are required for entrances into colleges and universities. And they did say that announced final report cards for everyone. Then April 3rd came, and they had to push the deadline because we have what's called OUAC and OCAS, which are the services through which students in Ontario apply for acceptances into various college and university programs. There was no way we were going to be able to meet that deadline, so that got pushed to May the 1st, which was great news. Then we had the ministry announce on a few days later the support for families, one-time payment of $200 for every child in your household from 0 to 12, and then $250 for those 0 to 21 with special needs. April 14th came, and as we suspected, the closure was extended to May the 4th. So a little different than how it's happening in other provinces, kind of a, you know, gradual approach here. April 15th, D2L announced, I was going to share it with you, but I'm running out of time, a quick start care package, absolutely incredible. It's kind of for those teachers who are, you know, don't have experience in, you know, in working in the provincial VLE, which is D2L's Brightspace, or don't have experience as e-teachers, kind of a quick start guide for how they can get their courses up and running in D2L, you know, just using those very basic types of functions. And they have the guides, they have the videos, they have online support, etc. for that. April 17th, partnership with Rogers and Apple, which you may or may not have heard of in the news out west. 21,000 iPads with free wireless data was provided to students who didn't have access to tech and internet. And then April 26th, that was when? That was last night. They announced, well, we're going to extend the closure to May 31st. And our exam days and remaining PA days are now replaced with instructional time. So that's kind of where we are right now. We are closed until May 31st, and we will await further directions from the ministry. Thanks, Randy.
There was a question from Nick about, with the tech support, is there for parents or is it for the teachers as well? So what tech support is being offered to teachers? I think, Nick, to reiterate your question.
You know what, that's a fantastic question. And it is, just going back to my meeting controls here and then stop the share. So it is available for both. But it's different in different boards, right? Each board, we have 72 school boards in Ontario, and each board has its own continuity of learning plan. And so I just can only speak for our board, which has been fantastic. For my kids, that support line is available for parents and for students. Just to give you an idea about my own kids, I've got like I said, I've got a 13-year-old special needs, and she just finished actually. So I'm in the living room. We've got people working in different houses or different places throughout the house. She has 1.5 hours every single day with her EA online, and is brilliant the things that they're doing. And my twins who are 15 years old and in grade 10. They've been doing videos, they've been doing collaborations, they've been doing book reads with groups and whatnot. So it has been going, from my perspective, very well, at least in my household.
Terrific. And I'm sure that you all saw sort of a chronology of your own experiences with going through Todd's detailed piece in terms of looking at that. So I think that helps us to understand a little bit in terms of what we've gone through as well. So Amy, do you want to run your own slide deck, or do you want me to set it up?
Can you set it up, please, Randy?
Okay, so awesome. What happened was,
or we can go without the slides too. I just don't have it ready to go. Whatever is easier.
That's all right. So
I'll start talking, and
okay,
you can bring it up. Perfect. So I'm going to share a little bit about the perspective from Saskatchewan. So in my role, I'm the principal of a fully online school, but as well support teachers who use our Moodle LMS in a blended classroom. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the fully online and the blended. In Saskatchewan, we don't have a centralized online program. And so we have just under half of the provincial school divisions actually have online programs, as well as one independent school, and one First Nations Education Authority has that. So when schools were closed physically on March 20th, there wasn't just a provincial body ready to take that over. And so on March 16th, we did receive an announcement that the schools would be closed on the 20th. And in Saskatchewan, schools are closed indefinitely. We don't know when we will be back in the schools. We suspect probably not until the fall. A Reopen Saskatchewan plan came out last week, and schools were not specifically included in that plan. So we just don't know what the timeline looks like for when we'll be back. So what happened is on the 20th, schools were closed for a week, and there was a pause in education operations. And during that time, the ministry met with the different school division leadership and put together an emergency response plan that would guide us through the next steps. And essentially in that emergency response plan, we were directed to provide students with that key essential learning that would help students get through the rest of the year, but also we're directed to use multiple delivery methods. So not just one online method, we were challenged to use other methods as well to deliver that, as well as the instructions to parents that they were not expected to provide Saskatchewan curriculum to the students, that they would be supported by teachers. So what we've been doing is very similar to what Todd was explaining is happening in Ontario a little bit later with teacher-directed education. The teachers are delivering the content, the teachers are assessing it, and then communicating with the students. How that delivery looks like is different from division to division based on the resources that they have access to, their communities and whatnot. So some are copying their fully online courses and putting all of the students and teachers into those and running it that way. Others are directing their teachers to use a common platform. So everybody's going to use Moodle or Blackboard, and they would have some consistency with what the delivery method is. And then others are just directing their teachers to use what they're currently using to keep things simple for teachers and students and things that they're familiar with. That's what our school division is using. So we are using the platforms we're familiar with. So if you're using OneNote, continue to use OneNote. If you're using Moodle or Seesaw and whatnot. So, but we are providing our teachers with training and resources, pre-built lessons to help support and whatnot. But the key message we've been sharing is engagement, that the most important part is engaging our students with the content. If we can keep students engaged, then that education piece will come. And also to help take care of that social and emotional well-being of our students. So the big challenge is to keep things direct and simple and engage our students. We have seen some challenges in Saskatchewan, which I'm sure are not unique. The biggest one is access to technology. And when we say access to technology, so it's not just students that have no access, it's access to adequate technology. All of a sudden you have families that might be sharing one computer and you have two parents and multiple children working from home, and that could be a challenge. And in our school division, we have been able to provide one device per household. I know that's happening in other parts of the province as well. But in addition, we are creating work packages that are being picked up at schools or delivered in a safe manner so that students do have access to learning, even if technology is a barrier. Another challenge we've been finding are teacher expectations. I think when schools closures were announced, some of them thought they were just going to pick up and exactly replicate everything that was happening in their face-to-face classes fully online. And that's just been kind of helping teachers see what's possible, what kind of things they can do. Another challenge we're coming across between with our education technology team is teacher training. It's just hard to remotely train large number of people on different platforms and get them all up and running, as well as efficiency. Some teachers are finding it a challenge. They are able to deliver content, but those real efficient tools that we're used to using in our fully online programs, those take time to learn and to create and implement. And I think they just find it's not as efficient to, you know, have a document emailed to them and download. So I think those are things that we need to look at moving forward. Of course, there are successes. So I think this is a very safe and forgiving environment for teachers to start using technology. Everybody's pretty understanding that it's not going to be perfect. There are going to be bumps in the road. So for our teachers that have been resistors or hesitant to using technology, they have been thrown into it and they really don't have a lot of choice. But I think it's a great way for them to practice, and hopefully the lessons and the skills that they're learning now will be taken moving forward. And I also see this as a way for us to change some of our current practices. So again, what we had to do out of necessity could become a really great thing moving forward. Where we see moving forward, where I see for this, like for distance education specifically, is that we are seeing an impact on our distance education program. So when the announcement came at 11 o'clock on March 16th that schools will be closed indefinitely, my phone started ringing at 11:02. And by 11:30, we took our registration down because things were crashing and we saw a massive increase of people inquiring to get into our program from within our school division, but from other school divisions as well that didn't have a distance education program. One school division that left their registration live, the 2-week period, the last week were schools before they physically closed in that education pause, they saw over 129 different registrations come in for the program in a 2-week period. So there will be an increase in enrollment, and that's going to come with challenges, although I'd love to say that it's great for our enrollment to increase, but then we are going to be facing in the fall challenges with how do we staff and training. And I think as there's more uncertainty with what things are going to look like moving forward, we could see more students moving there. And so I think also too, now as distance programs and distance leaders and e-learning leaders, I think we have a responsibility to help build that capacity within some of our face-to-face teachers. Until there's a vaccine or a treatment, we are going to see some uncertainty, and we could have students who are away because they're sick or maybe have to self-isolate for a while, and so they're away from schools even if they're open, or we might see delays to schools opening or even opening and closing for a short period of time to deal with outbreaks. And I think one of the things I'm looking at now is how can I increase the capacity of our face-to-face teachers so that they can, you know, be better prepared to deal with some of these issues down the road. All right.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. And again, that's mirroring, I think, a little bit. There's a couple of questions in there. So thanks, Todd, for replying back for Shirley. So we can keep it going in the chat. And just a reminder, as Brad has indicated, for those who are attendees, make sure you selected panelists and attendees, then everyone will see the conversation going by. So Frank, over to you.
Thank you very much, Randy. And what is happening in Alberta is not so different from a lot of other places. But if you go to the next slide, Randy, when schools were closed, and I realized the date on this particular online news story is March 27th, but we were basically closing out on the 15th, 16th. But there was a clear statement from the Minister of Education from the get-go that instruction would be moved online. Much like other places, much like Saskatchewan, the closure is indefinite. It's pretty clear that it's going to stretch into the summer. And with recent comments by the Alberta Chief Medical Officer of Health, summer schools in many jurisdictions are also on the block because the prohibition against gatherings is continued. So basically everyone knew from the start that they were going to be moving into some form of online delivery. There is no consistent spring break across the province. And so when this announcement came out, was just before the spring break for the majority of Alberta divisions. So your Calgary publics, some of your larger cities, a number of the rurals, they were all going out at the same time. So I envision a lot of panicked teachers over their spring break working to get online delivery ready to go. Much like other places, emergency remote stuff, there are some divisions that have online infrastructure. There are some that don't. There is a centralized distance ed provider in the province, the Alberta Distance Learning Center, or ADLC, and in my conversations with them, since this started, over half the teachers in the province are now accessing some form of resource or service from ADLC. So from the start, it was pretty clear there was going to be online delivery. The minister made general sweeping comments around this wouldn't interrupt students' educational programming, that marks would be submitted, so on and so on. But Randy, if you can move on, as with every other province in the country, it's in the details that things started to emerge. So there were very specific guidelines and procedures that were put out by the Department of Education 2 weeks into this. And most notably was around the completion of classes. So while the minister had said there will be final marks provided, what the minister didn't say is based on the delivery of the content. We have a number of folks, a number of parents and teachers, when you get in, or pardon me, parents and students, when you get into their expectations, they were calling us within a week saying, okay, so I'm going to get a final mark for this class that I started 4 weeks ago. No, you will not. The directive from the Department of Education is around completion of classes. The classes that were started should be brought through to completion. In the cases where that's not possible, and quite obviously there are a number of areas, career technology studies. If you're working on welding, I mean, we can't send a welder out to your house. That's just not going to happen. So there are a few situations where courses can't be completed, and so there are processes and procedures put in place to ensure that credits are provided. So the completion of classes was definitely one that was not in the initial headlines and has caused some challenge around parent and student expectations, because they're basing their questions on, well, this is what the newspaper said, and things have changed since then. In our school, we primarily use online resources, and so we very much continued as business as usual. Much like in Saskatchewan, we, before any of this even really got going, we pulled down our registrations for the first 5 business days of the closures, knowing that we were going to run into the exact sort of situation that Amy has mentioned. Anecdotally, I mean, for us, online situation is normal. In many of our schools, teachers were thrown into the deep end of the pool, and they have been swimming immensely well. I have nephews who are in the system, and what I have observed is that teacher proficiency has improved markedly, exponentially even, over the past number of weeks. And so while initially there were just a couple of postings and maybe a few worksheets, as teachers have become more engaged with how they're delivering in their platforms, what I'm seeing is a lot more interaction, a lot more video, a lot more specifically designed activities around the new platform, which is good to see. Provincial assessments, like every other place, provincial assessments have been moved off the table. However, provincial assessments are required for a number of folks who need high school credit. So in this province, we do have traditional homeschooling, where students are essentially doing their own curriculum, and if they want high school credit, they need to write a provincial assessment. Well, if all provincial assessments are canceled, then how do those homeschool students receive their credit? And so there are some aspects of this that have to be addressed in terms of the provincial assessment. Even though they're canceled, they can't be 100% canceled. I guess, Randy, we can move on to the next part, because again, the challenges that we're seeing in Alberta are not much different from other places. So first of all, there is a lot of activity in online courses. Well, as Amy said, that's a good thing. But again, the core of good online teaching is, again, still the relationship between the teacher and the student. And so while our technical infrastructure is quite strong and is scalable, you know, if we want to move from 10,000 to 20,000 students in a Moodle system, we can accommodate that. But we can't do that in terms of the human resource. How does a teacher who's working with 150 students suddenly work effectively with 400 active students? That becomes very difficult. In the middle of all of this, our provincial government passed an austerity budget that is heavily impacting at least the future of online learning in the province. Schools that use online resources or deliver primarily using online resources have taken a heavy hit on the budget. And so there's no way that the current level of online service can be supported for the next school year. In addition, the central provider, ADLC, has basically been threatened with closure in 2022. And so this central provider, which is providing currently over half the teachers in the province of Alberta with digital resources and services, at least is publicly announced as being closed in 2 years. Clearly that's going to be an issue. And then not just into next year, but into the current year, the minister originally said there was not going to be any impact on the current education budget. That kind of went away. And a couple of weeks ago, the government clawed back over $100 million in education funding, which resulted in the removal of EAs, which, as Todd has pointed out, are absolutely vital for online delivery of some sort for students in special needs. So there are some definite funding issues. And then, of course, we got the transition next year with prerequisite skills. While there are a number of processes and policies put into place, they're not being adhered to with the same level of consistency across the province. And so we're already seeing that some students are receiving credit in courses for which they no longer have the full skill set. And as they move into the next school year, that's going to present any number of problems. So good, bad, ugly. You know, I don't think Alberta is markedly different from any of the other places that have already talked about this, but we've got our own little unique challenges that we can see in the coming years.
Thank you, Frank. Yes, very much so. Karen, do you want to, I'll stop sharing if I can get my cursor back over. If you want to application share your new slides, I wasn't able to get them in for that. But just as a sort of, as you're setting up, Karen, just we can hear the story of uncertainty that exists and continues to exist across as well. And I think there's other economic issues that cover and overshadow a lot of this, certainly for Alberta's situation in terms of the economics around the whole industry-based pieces. So again, every day forward is a different sort of step, and we're just really not sure. It's heartening to hear across the country that a lot of the teachers that were thrust into the deep end of the pool are actually starting to figure it out and start to work reasonably well with that. Are there any other sort of insights, the rest of the group, while Karen's getting set up, that you can provide? Any thoughts come to mind? Some of the esteemed, Michael, Barbara, do you have anything sort of to say? And folks, I want to apologize. I did not realize that some of my Zoom windows were over top of slides. I'm learning that, and I didn't realize that not being an attendee, that you can only shoot a message to the panelists. So we've shut some things down, but we're learning. We'll be really good by the time we get to the closing keynote there with Michael on Thursday at noon. So Karen, are you good, or do you want me to run? Oh, I can see the look. She's still setting it up.
Randy, I could just add that there's a silver lining in all of this. And, you know, I look at some of the things that, you know, are teachers who probably haven't had a great deal of experience and success, you know, with blended learning and whatnot in the past. And just to see some of the risks that they're taking, the successes that they're having, and celebrating that. So, you know, that's good to see. And also our own students becoming problem solvers. The problem solving skills for even my own kids, and I'm sure this is not uncommon, you know, has been fantastic. So just a couple of silver linings there. Not to mention patience.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate that.
I'd add one other silver lining in there is the fact that I think a lot of school leaders now are starting to realize that many folks aren't trained in this, and there will likely be local incidences of this happening during the 2020-21 school year. There may be a second wave coming. So come September, whenever we do get back into the classroom, I think you're going to see school leaders put a greater emphasis on not just training teachers on how to make this a little seamless the next time it happens, but also preparing students on, here's how to learn using these tools, as opposed to just here's how to use these tools.
I can just jump in here, Randy. Mention reading over the weekend. There's a site in the States called Student Voice, and they were asking about remote teaching, remote emergency teaching. And basically the feedback from students hasn't been very positive. This is again out of the States, and I don't know how representative it is, but they were talking about how difficult it is to learn at home. Distractions, setting up a routine, communication issues, there's even spotty technology. So one of the things that I'm concerned about is that while we are being provided with an opportunity to really put our best foot forward as online educators, there are many occasions, many places where it's not being done well, and in fact we're getting some shade thrown on us. We have some private schools here where their idea of teaching online, remote teaching, was simply providing some videos where they lecture at the kids and then give them some exercises, and this is online learning. We have to do a lot of work in re-educating or properly informing people that there's a whole lot more to it all, and that it does require a lot of work. And just one last thing is to mention that where you have a competency-driven curriculum such as we do here, getting teachers to develop and work on developing competencies in an online environment requires a lot of experience and a lot of planning and organization. You have to be able to work with kids, students in groups, in breakout sessions, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of challenges ahead. I think they're wonderful opportunities, but we have to recognize that there are certain challenges and problems that have been put forward generally for us.
Thanks very much, Michael. So Karen, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, can you see my slides? Does that work?
Yeah, we're seeing them. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. So one of the things about being last on the panel is that just about everything I had planned to say has been said, so that's awesome. But one of the things I did want to bring out is the notion of uncertainty being one of the worst forms of trauma. And in British Columbia, we've had a lot of uncertainty recently. In the last year and a half, 2 years, we've been looking at similar to what Alberta is experiencing right now. We've had sort of the ground rules laid out for some really significant changes, and up until February, we were really focused on looking at proposed funding and as a result, proposed changes to DL that were coming our way. And then in February, we found out we had a bit of a reprieve. We were calling it a stay of execution, and it was going to be okay for at least a year while the ministry figured things out a little more with a little bit more detail. So we started thinking about September 2020, which was awesome, and then COVID hit. So no business as usual for anyone, lots of uncertainty, and hence lots of trauma. And right away, the Ministry of Education began exploring how to implement emergency measures. And it's a difficult balance, the notion of trying to create certainty in a time where we are all uncertain, and give districts that have geographical and situational expertise the autonomy to be able to do what they need to do. It would have been really nice to have had assurances about how it was all going to go down, but in fact they would have been the only people to have been providing assurances, because we're all at the mercy of the virus, of course, and we need to accept that as our truth. So first of all, when we think about where we're going, where we're sitting now and where we're going, there are some challenges. And I think Michael's point was an important one. Been scanning social media, and we've seen everything from the sublime to the ridiculous. But one of the hardest things has been the amount of criticism that has come the way of distributed learning. And what we're doing is not DL. What we're doing is remote emergency education. That's such a critical point to be making right now. You know, I'm reading from teachers I respect, from parents I'm related to. You know, it's never meant to be online, it's substandard, it's wrong, it's not possible. But it is possible. We do it every day, and we do it for students who are vulnerable. We do it for students who are able to learn and to thrive. And so we really need to be clear, what we're doing is not, you know, in our province, in our country, around the world, it's not DL. It's remote emergency learning or emergency remote learning, and things like equity of access, capacity of families to support the learning at home, capacity of teachers. Those all need to be considered. You know, the educators in our neighborhood schools have had to completely change practice while they're under tremendous stress themselves in all aspects of their lives, with no training and no lead time. We all know it's taken us years. You know, I was easily 2 years in as a teacher before I really felt like I was on it. We know there's trauma and grief connected to everything we're living right now, and it's normal to look for something to blame because everything is so far beyond our control. But it is not a problem of online learning or DL learning that is to blame. And we need to really be sure that it's clear to those who are planning our futures when the COVID rules change, as Michael says, that the bad rap we might be getting now is not okay because we are not, this is not what we do. So that's an added layer to DL at the time of crisis. And to be fair, we haven't had to make as many changes as our neighborhood school colleagues, and I freely admit that. But we still have had to make a lot of changes. In BC, we've made our curriculum, done a bit more sharing, as was mentioned about Quebec, a bit more sharing and making curriculum more widely available to our colleagues. So the province is providing Zoom licensing, WCLN and Navigate and SIDES are providing courses through 3 different learning management systems, Moodle Canvas and D2L Brightspace. So those are open to the province, and Canvas and D2L made their stuff available for free until the end of June, which is awesome. So we're able to share out things for people who need it. And there's been a fair bit of uptake there. We've been taking time to provide guidance to our colleagues directly or through workshops about best practice. DL schools have been changing assessment practices, and we had a temporary closure of enrollments, not unlike many of you. Ours at our school is going to go until May 15th. Other schools have you know, sort of picked and chosen their times to return. But we're still not sure what the summer is going to look like. There's conversation on the one hand that we're going to be back sometime at the end of May, and others that say we're not going to have summer school this year. So we're not sure what it means for DL, other than we are going to be open for business, we believe, and so we're going to be opening registrations. And like everybody else, we've been responding to those individual concerns of students. Some think we're not doing enough instruction and guidance, and some are just looking for the quick pass. You know, the minister said I would get through and I would graduate. You know, and bless his heart, he was doing his best to reassure people, but he did us in a way, you know, didn't do a favor for us as we try to make sure that people understand that learning and credentialing are not the same thing. So, you know, what are we learning now? Because we are learning a lot. Innovative use of tools, video conferencing for meeting with students, and effectively supporting colleagues who are new to the platform and to remote learning expectations. You know, no, you're not going to be able to do every single thing you plan to do between now and the end of June, and that's okay. The kids are going to be all right. Working collaboratively from a number of different locations, having faith in our own resilience and our ability to innovate and be nimble. Those are great, and we are managing quick change more than we thought. And finally, the importance of our work and how we can use the experience accumulated over 2 decades of teaching and learning online to guide what education faces now. And back to that point, this is not DL, this is emergency remote learning. So, you know, just because I'd like to end with something that's feeling good, I'd like to end with a real quick story. We've been touched by the words of putting humanity first, and our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, talks about, the place to begin is to be kind, be calm, and be safe. And if we can't provide certainty, we can replace it with little acts of compassion and empathy. And one of our EAs, and sympathies to Alberta on this one, one of our wonderful EAs was working in Zoom with one of her students who is an 8-year-old child with Down syndrome. And our student was sad because she wanted to be with Kirsty, not just see her online. And so Kirsty, in a moment of inspiration, ran to her daughter's room and grabbed a stuffy, and then invited Eliza to get her own stuffy, and then they each hugged their stuffies, and that was their way of connecting. And that's become their ritual of connection. And I think we're all finding our own rituals of connection, whether it's colleague to colleague or teacher to student or EA to student. We have a sense of physical as well as the voice and the visual online, and that kind of caring is going to remain crucial as we go on. So that I think is where I'd like to leave us. So thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. And apologies about going a little bit over time, folks, but we'll wrap up at the quarter mark and give you 15 minutes to shuffle into the next sessions. So any closing commentary here before I do a little bit of a transition? Michael or Aaron or anyone else here in the group?
Maybe just mention there's a good article or an interesting article by Peter DeWitt in Education Week that just came out this morning. It's worth reading. Again, I sound like a really negative person here. I'm not, but just the dangers and risks of emergency remote learning and the dropout and the reason why a lot of the kids are not attending. If there are no grades, why go? They don't have good teacher-student relationships. So worth a read in Education Week.
I think it's a cautionary note. And I know we've just touched on this issue, et cetera. There's a couple of other sessions further on in the program. I know that, Michael, we can maybe field some things. I've got a session just before yours on Thursday that we can bring some of this forward. But folks, we posted a few questions here, but also we've got the shared document. So we'll be active in there if you want to poke away at a few folks. If you want anyone to come back in the session that you'd like to hear more from the panel, let me know, and I can certainly reach out, see if they're available. We can slot them in. The beauty about this, we're making up new agendas and new workshops as we go. So if we do want to revisit some of these things that resonate throughout, and we'll talk a little bit more at the end of the day, but we can certainly restructure some things for that. Any other closing comments?
Randy, I would just like to really echo what Karen said about, particularly here in Ontario, where we had a lot of controversy when e-learning was under the limelight, when consideration for it to be moved to mandatory, and everything that we can do, and certainly, Can eLearn has been absolutely fantastic. Whatever we can do to have the public understand, certainly, that this is an emergency intervention, that this is not true e-learning. And even though our true e-learning programs continue on as they always have, we would hate that the impression of the public would be that, what teachers are doing and doing extremely well in terms of migrating from face-to-face to the online platforms. It's not the immersive types of engaging e-learning that we've all built and are very proud of. With the help of and I can see there's a few attendees here, our contacts and our DELCs throughout our province.
Great, thank you. I was just reflecting on our backdrops, and one of the things that we don't think about a lot and what they might say to us. Karen is studious. I'm trying to get out the door. Don't mess with Amy, because she's got a punching bag right behind there on that, and no one will let Thomas in the school. He's stuck in the parking lot. So we know that Aaron loves the mountains, which we already know. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to our panelists and to everyone here. Apologies for the little glitches, as we will get this refined and get better. But now it's moving on to the workshop sessions. And the program, of course, in SCED, but right now we're in Canvas. And Aaron, is there any comments on Canvas that you want to add in terms of that? I know that there's a few email filter issues that we've had, but Aaron, any closing comments as our host, and thank you for being here as Canvas.
Thanks, Randy. No, just to let everyone know to please check your email. We have enrolled everybody who registered in the conference into Canvas. So when you receive that email, you should be able to click the link and get right into the learning environment where all the sessions for today are posted. And if you need any help as well, there's an email with a link to our help desk, which is running throughout the conference. So hopefully everybody can get in, but let us know if you need help.
Thanks, Aaron. And yes, there's some people that are only in for Monday or Tuesday in some of the courses. If you want more, again, get back to us and we can certainly open up the doors for you to have that happen. And so just a reminder that more conversation in the shared document afterwards as well. And if we want any more conversation with some of the group here, we can bring that forward. So off to the workshop sessions. Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate you being here, and enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.